All right, joining me now, former Speaker of the House, Bronwyn Bishop, and Sky News host, Caleb Bond. Wonderful to see you both tonight.
Pleasure.
Look, we're going to come back to that topic of Scott Morrison and the polls with Albo in a minute, but I want to turn today to this gender pay gap reporting. This has been released for the first time. Companies have been named and shamed for their pay gap between men and women, some as large as 50%. Here are the top 10 companies when it comes to the pay gap, the worst companies. Let's have a look at this list here. You can see them there: Lorna Jane, Commonwealth Bank, Hunter Primary Care, Energizer, Jetstar owned by Qantas. Then you've got another list: Westpac, ANZ, BHP Group, Woodside Energy and NAB. The banks up there among them. Now, this report has been met with some hostility today, most famously from the likes of Matt Canavan. He said it's useless. Have a look.
It might be useless for its own objectives and purposes, but I worry it's actually counterproductive to our society. These type of reports are becoming annual Andrew Tate recruitment drives. All they do is spread division and resentment in our community. People, young men in particular, feel like they are now being discriminated against.
The idea that reporting on the pay gap between men and women would encourage men to turn to Andrew Tate is farcical. But Matt Canavan's colleague, Senator Jane Hume, pointed out that this list has shown the hypocrisy of companies who celebrate Women's Day. They go out there with cupcakes and morning tea, but then they fail to pay their female staff the same as men.
Some of those companies, and some of them that you named earlier on, make a big deal every year of International Women's Day, or they market their products to women, or they take active roles in social campaigns or political campaigns, and yet they perhaps haven't looked in their own backyard to see whether they really are meeting their own very high standards for others.
That was Jane Hume on Peter Credlin earlier. I think this reporting is absolutely essential. I've campaigned for it since I was editor of Clio magazine in 2013, 11 years ago. We all know the universal truth that men have more confidence when it comes to arguing for pay rises than women do. Bronwyn, look, I want to know what you think about this. You came up against the glass ceiling dramatically when you were starting out your political career.
Well, that's true, but I did manage to push on because I did a lot of firsts. But with regard to this report, there's an old adage: there's lies, damned lies, and statistics. And the truth about this report is when you hear about it, you think, oh, that's about men and women not being paid the same for the same job. That's not what that report's about. That report is about saying that in a company which has 100 people or more, they have added up the amount of wages paid to the men and compared that with the total amount of wages paid to women. But they're different jobs within it. Now, the point that you're making there about men having more confidence to ask for pay rises and so almost take as an entitlement is quite right. But that's not this report. That's the one that says men and women are still not being paid the same for the same job. Now, I'll give you an example about what this one is about. In the Parliament, senators and members are all paid the same. But once you start up the ladder, getting a shadow ministry, a chairman of a committee, whatever, you're paid differently. And so I haven't done the actual stats, but I'll bet London to a brick that, in fact, you'll find that men are getting more money than women once you add all those packages up. Yeah. So it's important not to confuse the two issues.
I understand what you're saying.
And I absolutely agree with you, with women needing to learn tenacity and to stand up and say, no, I'm worth more, or I am worthy of this promotion, and being strong and confident in themselves. That's where there's still a lot lacking.
Look, it's true that this report doesn't compare women and men in the same jobs.
Correct.
But that's part of the problem, that there are more women in junior positions. That's why their pay is so vastly different, because these companies are still promoting the men, and no one on this planet could say that men deserve promotions more than women do, or that men are smarter than women, or that men deserve more money than women. That's not the case anymore.
No, I would never argue that, but I think there are also probably biological reasons behind this. I mean, if you look at childbirth, for instance, right? Women tend to take more time out of work in order to look after their kids. We now have in this country paid parental leave from the state that is available to both parents if they want to take it. In the last financial year, 170,000 women took paid parental leave, 1,020 men did it. So these are decisions that are still being made by families, that they would prefer the woman, the mother, to stay at home after they've had a child. And things like that affect your income, your career progression, the superannuation that you earn, etc. So it's a noble aim that we should want women to have as much opportunity and as much income as men. But I think there are reasons behind that that mean it will never actually be achieved.
It's also a problem, though, that companies aren't promoting women after they've had children just because they can't do those inflexible hours.
But if you were allowed tax deductibility for childcare expenses, you would get a much better result. I did a whole inquiry into that, and I had professional women after professional women saying, if we could have this, we could have a fair competition in the workplace. But oh no, we've got to be levelled down. Everybody's got to put their child in an institution where they can teach it the institutional rubbish.
But also not everyone wants to put their child in childcare, and that's why we need flexible working hours and the ability to work from home while still getting promotions.
If we could finally get tax deductibility for childcare expenses, which I spent years trying to convince John Howard, it was like banging my head against a brick wall. But if we could actually achieve that, it would really make a difference for women.